Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donohue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy. Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donohue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. We are the podcast that talks about creeps from the past to the present. This is a funny episode because we talked about this creep's son for being a creep not too long ago. Yes. We have a link in the show notes if you want to check that out for yourself. So this creepiness runs in the family. It's in their DNA. Or were they raised that way? I don't know. But we are talking about director John Landis. And just in case it's your first time listening to the show, we always end it with somebody who's not a creep. So that'll make you'll feel a little bit more uplifted by the time you're done. This is one of those tougher episodes because we're talking about kids are involved in this story. So think about that before you move forward. Also, I should warn you, we use salty language in this program. That's just what we do. That's just how we speak. We're adults. We're too old to change, so deal with it.
Shit, fuck, damn.
We have a basic Facebook page if you're looking to send us suggestions. And we're always looking for suggestions for creeps and for non-creeps. We have a basic Facebook page. We never really use it. We are much more interactive in our private Facebook group. You do have to ask to join. We have a couple of questions. You have to promise to not be annoying. I'm talking like Ramona and Real Housewives of New York.
It's a good impression.
Thank you. Also, Creep Pod. We are on Twitter at Creep Pod because somebody had What a Creep on Twitter for over 10 years, never used it.
Creep.
And then we're on Threads, Instagram, and Blue Sky at What a Creep Podcast.
Correct.
Send us your suggestions there. Or we have an old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. So just spell that all out. We also just got a new batch of stickers. They're wicked cute. If you would like some stickers, send us your address via email, and we will drop them in the mail for you and send them to you wherever you are on the planet of Earth.
She'll do it.
Just dare me, y'all. I'll do it.
She will.
I'm not scared
good at that.
I'm not scared. Do you want to tell them about the website?
Yeah, go to whatacreeppodcast.com, and it's everything you ever wanted to know about our show, but we're afraid to ask. You shouldn't be afraid to ask. And it is all updated. I went on this week and I updated everything. So all of our past episodes are on there, and you can click into each one, and there are our show notes for each episode. We don't make up anything we're doing here. Ooh. We source everything we do. We want to give credit to the people that do their work. If you're looking for a deeper dive, it's a fabulous place to start. Do that. You can also go to our merch shop where you can get t-shirts and tote bags and little pouches that you could zip up and put your makeup in, or all the things. You can get all the things. It's a great idea. Do it. Do the things. Hey, it's graduation season, y'all. If we make great gifts, do that. There's also a Substack, and there's a link to our Patreon if you want to tell them about that, Margot.
We have our first seasons, 8 seasons up on our Patreon wall. That's Patreon. And we also put out 2 bonus episodes a month. And it's just Sonia and I shooting the shit. Just stuff happening in the news.
So fun.
It's actually super fun. And it just helps with the basic costs for the show. We subscribe to a lot of different news services, even when they piss us off. And it's just for the basic costs for the show. So all of you that support us there, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. We just dropped our first bonus episode for the month. And we will get the other one out probably the second to the last day of the month. Usually. It's okay.
We make it happen. We make it happen.
We make miracles happen here, just so you know. And if you want to find another way to support us, we really appreciate it when you leave us reviews wherever you get your podcasts. And you have one from Apple you want to reach out?
Marianne without an E left us 5 stars on Apple. So thank you, because I know Apple doesn't make it easy.
No, they do not do it. Yeah. And then I'm Feeling Sublime on Apple also gave us 5 stars. Yes. And on Spotify, I actually went through and wrote some names down. Kimberly, Kay, Jen, Maureen, Kessler. All of them have leaving us reviews in Spotify. Yes. Or just hit the stars button. All that just like super helps us, because then we get more visibility and more people can find the show, and we could grow the show, and We'd love to just do this for a living, to be honest with you. It would be amazing.
Well, that would be delightful.
That would be the miracle. Am I missing anything, Sonia?
I think that's everything.
Okay. Let's start here. I think Ragey Margot and Ragey Sonia are going to come out today.
Yeah, we will be activated.
We are super activated. This is an infuriating thing. We're talking about a workplace accident that, obviously horribly wrong. 3 people died. It's
And
awful.
it could have been prevented. It's going to be
Absolutely.
very upsetting.
Right. So just, like I said, keep your, if that's justice isn't served. Let's just make this clear. And that's one of the reasons it's very enraging. So if that's going to trigger you or whatever, just keep that in mind. Once again, we're talking about kids. We're talking about an accident where 3 people were killed. And Sonia, when we met for the first time in person, we went to lunch, and this is when you were with your ex.
Yes.
And he had an interesting story about our subject today. Would you mind relating that story? Because you probably heard it 100 times from him. You probably tell it better.
Maybe. No, I don't know. So my ex-husband used to work at Universal Studios as a tour guide. And those are hard jobs to get, by the way. Like, you have to study. There's a huge, thick binder of stuff they had to memorize. It's pretty bananas, actually. So he was, on the tram. This would have been in the 90s, early 90s, probably. So one of the things that you would do, you point out, this is the Psycho House, and this is where they film Back to the Future, or whatever. And you could point out, if you saw celebrities or something, there's Rob Lowe or whatever. I don't know why I said Rob Lowe, but there you go. Now, John Landis made it very clear that he did not wish to be pointed out for obvious reasons that we're going to get into.
Right. I realize now that's exactly probably why. Yeah.
And John Landis would purposely stand out when the tours were going by. He would just be there, out there, and basically daring people to point him out, and then he would get you fired. And my ex told a story about how he basically he was standing there almost daring him to point him out, and he just didn't point him out. He just pointed things out around him like he wasn't even there. And I was like, what a fucking dick.
Yeah.
What a dick. It wasn't hey, if I happen to be walking from this to this and you see me, don't point me out because I'm not looking for attention. It was purposely trying to get people fired from the job. And I was like, that's shitty.
And people who fire people are just shitty in general. I mean, but I remember just being aghast at why would anybody do that? But so this is the kind of person we're dealing with, just so you know. He's an asshole. He's a huge asshole.
Yes.
I also want to say he was acquitted of the charges against him. They went to trial, but that doesn't mean that nothing happened and he couldn't have made things a lot better and behaved better. That's what we're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So it's John Landis we're talking about. Let me just give this quick little preamble. Oh, there you are. Now I know where you are. Okay. Ha! John Landis, a well-known director and father of past creep Max Landis, has directed some of the most successful comedies, including Animal House, Trading Places, Coming to America. Have you heard of them? Only some of my favorites. It's a real bummer, by the way, to talk about this, to be honest with you.
Yeah, for sure. And again, we're not saying don't like those movies. You can like those movies. It's okay.
Hundreds of people are involved in a film. Yeah. There's, you're supporting the talent. You're supporting an industry. We do love movies. We love our entertainment. So, okay. While directing his segment for 1983's The Twilight Zone, the movie, a helicopter accidentally resulted in the deaths of actor Vic Morrow and 2 child actors, Micah Din Lee and Renee Shinye Chen. In 1987, he was charged with involuntary manslaughter, but was ultimately acquitted. We're going to discuss why he is a creep. I have the link in the show notes for the past episode about Max Landis if you want to check it for yourself. But the books, the sources. So there's a book called Fly by Night by Steve Chane. There's the Wikipedia page, of course. I have the New York Times, Movie Web, a Reddit thread. Just warning on the Reddit thread, there's photos and videos. So, yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah. Lad Bible, Slate, Far Out Magazine, BuzzFeed, Showbiz Cheat Sheet. I do love me a Showbiz Cheat Sheet. Los Angeles Times from 88. And Shudder, the Shudder channel has a show called Cursed Films. And they did a really good episode about this. Once again, this is a workplace accident. You know, if you've ever had, I had a couple of, they didn't die at the site, but there were twice people died in accidents that I worked at a place and like suddenly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it's a very upsetting, and it's a specific kind of trauma. So just keeping that all in mind for y'all. Let's talk about this asshole. John Landis was born August 3rd, 1950 in Chicago. And he was like 4 months old when his family moved to Southern California, but he completely aligns himself with Chicago, like up and down completely, the White Sox and all that crap. Okay. He is known for the movies, the Kentucky Fried Movie, which I haven't seen in a long time. I remember that was on HBO or something. Animal House, Blues Brothers, An American Werewolf in London. I love that movie.
Yeah.
Trading Places, Three Amigos, Coming to America, Beverly Hills Cop 3. And he directed 2 of Michael Jackson's biggest videos, Thriller and Black or White. He is married to a woman named Deborah Nadoolman. She is a costume designer. If you liked Michael Jackson's jacket, that red jacket that he wore in Thriller, she's the one that designed it.
Okay.
She's very talented. This is the nice part.
I used to watch the making of Thriller all the time.
All the time.
By the way, MTV was obsessed with the Thriller video. It was on every hour on the hour when it came out. And then there was like a whole making of documentary, and you got behind the scenes stuff with Michael Jackson and John Landis and all of that. And was that before or after the I think it was after the Twilight Zone thing. It is.
Right? That's 83. This accident happened in the summer of 82. So, he was working all this time up to the trial.
Yeah, I didn't know that because I was just a kid. I wouldn't have known. But that's how I knew wwho John Landis was, because I was like, that's the guy from the making of
exactly.
Video. Yes.
He also, just so you know, when he was, I found one thing here where when he directed the Blues Brothers in 1980, and just to tell you about the erratic nature of this man, he's described continuously as aggressive. He's a provocateur with people. He's dictatorial. He's a screamer who throws temper tantrums.
Hate those people.
They're the people that they make it clear your voice doesn't count.
Right.
And the more of a sycophant you are, you either become like an obsequious, like kiss ass, or you just are invisible but get shit done. He doesn't want any problems. He does. And I get like how that can be effective, but it's also when it also can bring tragedy. It can bring really horrible things because nobody wants to tell him no.
Yes.
He's
exactly.
a child.
People don't want to stand up to him and point out when things are wrong or unsafe.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is at the time, we should say, in the 1970s is when he really, his first movie was called Schlock. And
I don't know this
I'm
one.
not going to look it up, but he started as a stuntman in Yugoslavia, and then he came to, because he couldn't get a job. He was like, and he's 20, but he gets the funding. He does this movie called Schlock, and then he actually talks himself onto the Tonight Show. And then the Tonight Show, he does so well that they give him Kentucky Fried Movie, and basically his career was just set from that.
Okay.
I mean, he really kind of leapfrogged out there. On the set of the Blues Brothers, and I know this from my friend's dad's in the Blues Brothers, he's not with us anymore, but there was a line item in the budget for cocaine in the Blues Brothers, specifically for John Belushi, but everybody did it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Landis did it. I'm not. But he's erratic, let me say again.
Okay.
Very hyper, manic. Constantly moving. He's squirrely. He just can't keep himself contained, and it's
noted.
Right. So just keep that in mind. When the movie was released in 1980, this guy is so publicity hungry because it's funny, like he doesn't want to be pointed out now.
Yeah.
He went onto the set of the Today Show uninvited, where John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd were, and just joined their interview.
He's so interesting.
Oh, he's fast. Everybody wants to talk to the director, right?
Totally.
When you have Belushi and Aykroyd, by the way, that's what I
Right?
mean. Like, I don't give a shit who
Yes.
that is. That's,
Yeah, get out of here.
He went to all the press conferences, and it got to the point where reporters were like, please let them talk. This is a
Oh my
guy
God.
does not shy away from publicity. Like, he was.
This is like
he
P.
wanted
Diddy.
attention. Yes. Did you hear what happened to him today?
No.
Oh, trigger warning. So P. Diddy's former girlfriend, who's been talking for years about his abuse of her, and she's suing him, and people are calling her a liar. There's video of him abusing her, physically assaulting her. And it was in a hotel hallway. He runs out of his room with a towel wrapped around him, and she's trying to run away. And he meets her at the elevator and grabs her.
Oh, shit.
It's messed up.
Okay, no, I haven't seen it yet. I've been off the news sites today, but
It just like dropped like a little bit ago.
Okay.
Just by the way.
I bring him up because he was one of those people that like he signed he's working with Notorious B.I.G. and then like P. Diddy keeps showing up on all of his songs, and it's like, I don't want to hear you. I want to hear him.
We did an episode about him.
Yes.
And it's the exact same thing.
Yes.
It's just attention, attention, attention. I'm a part of this too. He's in all of his movies. It's like he's all over that behind the scenes for Michael Jackson. This is we were saying, like, establishing. This is not someone who's shy. It's not somebody who doesn't want attention. He really wanted it. He also was very competitive. There's a whole thing in the 70s about auteurs, these directors that were just artists. And there are like Francis Ford Coppola, Hal Ashby, Spielberg is
George
on
Lucas.
They're
Brian
on the
De Palma.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's this idea that the De Palma makes the arty films.
Yeah.
And Spielberg makes the white bread, makes a lot of money films. There was sort of this.
Yeah.
He had this. Believe it or not, there was a time when people thought Steven Spielberg was kind of childish. I mean, he's successful, but what does he do? Right? He wears sneakers and he's not scary, and he's like, yeah. So Landis and him, they were friends, but like nobody like studies Landis films for the great directing. Nobody says, or the great writing. It's just if the stars are funny, it's funny.
Right.
There's a certain movie he did I loved called Into the Night that he was really good. It's Jeff Goldblum and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah. We should do that on Dorking Out.
I love that movie. Yeah. So like we said, watch his films. It's not going to change anything in the universe. Like he's like Teflon, and I don't think actually, honestly, he gives a shit. But anyway, so the show The Twilight Zone, one of those cult classics. My mom was a huge fan. We all watched it.
They're very watchable.
Unbelievable. Like Sci-Fi Channel would have all day marathons, and Alfred Hitchcock, like that. It's that kind of anthology series. Yeah. And a lot of these directors are attracted to it because it's amazing storytelling. And they're doing it in under 30 minutes. And there's some just amazing people in these shows. So Spielberg and a few of his homies were like, we should do a movie, but everybody gets to direct their segment. And so he, for some reason, Landis got to direct the first segment. And it's a character is Bill Connor. He's played by Vic Morrow, who was in a show called Combat. He's also in the Bad News Bears. He's the dad that slaps the kid, who's the pitcher. Okay. Not a belly itcher. He's also he's Jennifer Jason Leigh's father. Yes. And he has another daughter as well. They had a fraught relationship. She was like 15 when he dies. But he was a character actor. And he was like old school character actor, just took the, not especially handsome or ugly, but kind of looked kind of rough and tough. And so he was in shows like Combat. He played cops. He played, that kind of thing. And so this part is about a man that's a horrible racist and like 10 times worse than Archie Bunker, like just foul-mouthed and evil. And I don't know have you ever seen, I should ask you, did you see the movie?
Yes, I have. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but It was on HBO a lot back in the
Yes.
day. So I definitely had it, and I definitely had segments that I liked more than others. And I will be honest, John Landis's segment was my least favorite.
Same, and I just watched it the other night. Even knowing things about him, because I could
Yeah.
definitely I could talk away and say like, no, that's a great video, that's a great this.
Yeah.
We can make those anyway. So the character is beyond racist. He's terrible, and he's a guy that he shows up at a bar, meets some friends, and he uses the N word, and he's anti-Semitic, and he's sexist, and he's just a shithead. And his friends that are with him are completely embarrassed or are kind of like, get out of here. So he leaves the bar, and then all of a sudden he's in Germany when the Nazis are in power. This is just like the whole conceit of the show. Like it just boom changes. And so all of a sudden they call him, they say he's Jewish, and they're going to put him in the thing and take it to the train up to the whatever.
Yeah.
So he's running away from the Nazis. Just, FYI, spoiling this for you. I think the next segment, it's the KKK. And John Larroquette plays our lead Ku Klux Klanner.
Oh,
It's early Larroquette, very handsome.
Mm.
And they think he's a black man, so they're trying to hang him. And he's like, I'm not black. And then he gets away, and then he wakes up, and he's like the Vietnam movie, I'm thinking, Apocalypse Now. He wakes up, and he's in the shit, in the jungle.
yeah.
And he's in Vietnam, and he sees a bunch of American soldiers, and he thinks, like, oh, waves to them, and they start shooting at him. And then he ducks away, and it's because they think he's Vietnamese. So they think he's, So then he ducks away. And then ultimately what was supposed to happen with this story, and this story went through 20 different drafts because nobody could figure out a way. Like, they're like, he's too mean. He needs to like have some moment, and then we feel compassion for him that he's changed. And so they came the idea of like, what if when he's in Vietnam, he rescues 2 kids just before the fall of Saigon kind of thing. Like, they're just get him out. And then they're like, kids, great. Everyone will think he's been a changed person. So that's the way it's supposed to end, is that he rescues these kids, and then he wakes up back at the bar or whatever, and he realizes he's a better person. Like, he's supposed to, okay. This is not what happens in this movie when you watch the movie. It just sort of abruptly ends.
Right.
And you're
because
like,
things went wrong and they had to change it.
right. And that happens.
Yeah.
Look, I talk The Crow, that, they put so much money into these things. And if there's a way to fix it, I mean, obviously you feel horrible that someone died and you feel bad, watch a thing, but it's the last thing they've ever done. Sometimes you kind of want to just see their work. And so this is the case with this movie. So they hire Vic Morrow. Sorry.
Yeah.
And they were going to hire 2 kids to play the Vietnamese children. And what was first brought up is that, what are we going to do? Like, how is this going to work? How is he going to carry them? What's the atmosphere going to be like? Because they didn't even have a location. They had like no budget. He had to do this for $1 million. And so they found this place called Indian Dunes in Valencia, California. And a guy there, they filmed like China Beach there. There's all kinds of movies that were filmed there. You can make it look like anything you want it to. They don't film there anymore. But this person was given the job to like create it. And it looks like it's the jungle, and it's batshit. And they're shooting different segments as they're moving the script along. And so the last thing they wanted was like, Landis all of a sudden always just, if you watch the Blues Brothers, it's the stunt scenes are incredible. You do kind of wonder,
There's
like, how the hell?
So many car
chases, and there's
things.
There's a helicopter in there. There's all kinds of stuff going on in that movie. And Landis just wanted to outdo that. That's a lot.
Okay.
So they build this jungle, and they're at the scene where the soldiers are shooting at Vic Morrow. He thought the fake guns, the fake bullets from the guns, the blanks, he didn't think it sounded real enough. So he told them to shoot with real guns. So those are real bullets that are shooting out of those guns. They're standing right next to each other. It's so irresponsible. And a lot of things change nowadays because you do so much in post Like, it just doesn't
Yeah.
matter what it sounds like. You could change it. But he wanted it real, real, real. I want real bullets. I want to really hear this. I'm like, I can't imagine the actors doing this.
Dude, it's just a Twilight Zone movie. Come on,
It's
man.
just a fucking movie at the end of the day. And then what was supposed to happen is that Vic Morrow was supposed to carry these kids and go across this water, and there's explosions everywhere, and then a helicopter is supposed to spotlight Vic Morrow and the two children 25 feet in the air, which is not very high.
No.
Thinking about a helicopter doing that.
No, but and the power of the wind
It's
that helicopter propellers create, it's really, really strong.
Yeah, well, the man who's the pilot is Dorsey Wingo, and this is his first job in the movie business. He had served in Vietnam. He had plenty of experience with helicopters. He had experience doing it all over the world, and he heard that if you're good in the movies, you can make a decent living. You only have to work like a couple of times a year, but you can make a good living. And he had married a woman who was Mexican American, and she had family in Mexico, and it was like 12 brothers and sisters, and they were orphaned, and so he was supporting his family with her and them. So he really needed to make money, and so he was really trying to get into the business, so he was undercutting the price basically just to get some experience, and that's why Landis picked him. There were other guys that had more experience, and it's usually men, but they either couldn't do it or they were too expensive. He was very cheap.
Right.
Like, he didn't want to spend the money. And so then the casting person says, well, wait a second. Why don't you just have a stuntman and carry two dummies and have them walk across? Or just have a spotlight and then, with editing, shoot back and forth.
Yeah.
It's like, no, not real enough, not real enough. And they said, what about using little people instead? I'm like, no, they have to be kids. So they said, well, this is very dangerous. You're not going to be allowed to have kids on the set. And also, he said, and she goes, well, you're going to shoot it in the daytime, right? And then we'll do a day for night thing. He goes, no, it has to be at night. It's going to be after midnight. And they're like, you cannot get kids on a movie set after midnight with helicopters and explosions and live ammo.
No. There's all kinds of rules and regulations protecting, well,
Should be.
humans on movie sets, but like children in particular, like they're only allowed to be on set for like a certain number of hours. And
Yeah, and we said this when we talked about the children working at Nickelodeon and that documentary that Quiet on the Set, that sometimes, they're supposed to be done by 8:00. And they're like, you got to shut down, especially if they're like 10, 12 years old. But the kids would be like, oh, no, we can do a little longer. I don't mind.
Yeah.
I don't mind. Because you want to be good. You want to be, you want the adults to approve of you and tell you you're doing a good job and you're not a pain in the ass and you're talented
when
and
you're
fun.
adult, you have all the power over these kids, and
Yes.
you're an adult and you're their boss.
Right.
It's a lot of power over a kid.
Right. And so Landis is meeting with his producers and this person, and she's like, that's not going to happen. You can't do it. And he's like, fine. You know what? They don't have speaking parts, so I'll just call them extras and I won't put them on the call sheet. The call sheet is a thing that goes out every day, and everybody that's on the set knows this is where we are. This is the pages we're doing. You need to, we're going to have explosives. This is when lunch is happening. They're not on the call sheet. They tell the parents, oh, it's going to be like a Disneyland ride. It's going to be like really kinetic, but it's fine. And the parents one of them is Vietnamese and the other one is from Taiwanese. And Micah is 7. I'm sorry, it just really breaks my heart. And and Renee was 6. And they're beautiful. They're just little angels.
Are they siblings?
No. They're
No,
from two
okay.
different families.
Got it.
And Micah's family, he's the little boy. His dad, he's Vietnamese. His dad was in Vietnam during the war and escaped with his son because of shit like this.
Yeah.
He didn't know. They were offered $500 each, I think, for each night. And the parents got the money. They brought the kids. They put them in Landis's trailer so they're way away from the set so they don't know what's going on.
they're basically doing this off the books.
It's all off the books, which is very illegal.
Yes. It's
And
to keep so he doesn't have to do paperwork or deal with rules and regulations that are put in place to keep children safe.
He has final cut, which means in Hollywood, like if they think it's too long, too bad. Like you have to use his version. That's in the contract that he has. This is how much power he had. Another thing that he was really adamant about was he wanted the helicopter to shoot bullets into the water. And they're like, you can't do that. And they're like, well, what about blanks? No, that's still dangerous. So they were shooting marbles, glass marbles, from a helicopter 25 feet in the air.
It still fucking hurts someone.
Of course it could. You throw a marble across the room, you could hurt somebody. It'll leave a bruise. I mean, it's... Because he wanted it to sound a certain way. And then they put these explosions all over the set. And then the fire safety marshal is supposed to go around and say, yeah, no, okay.
Right.
The marshal is also supposed to know if there are children, specifically if there are children on the set.
Right.
And the parents were told, if anybody asks, you're just visiting. Because they didn't want to get caught.
Right.
So nobody reported that there were kids there. They do a run through, and Landis is like, it's just not enough boom for me. As this helicopter's flying over, there's all these sounds, there's all these explosions happening everywhere. It's chaos. Vic Morrow is not exactly, a guy that's like a stunt man or something. Like, he's just a middle-aged guy. He didn't prepare, work out for 6 months so that he could be like, Galaxy
super
Quest.
Ripped yeah.
Or whatever the one I'm thinking of. But anyway, it's like like training for a Marvel movie. Like, he's just a character actor.
Right.
And he's these two little kids. And they do a run through. And once again, and people came up to him and said, this doesn't seem safe. And one time they did this tryout, a rehearsal, and it was really intense. And the helicopter pilot was like, I don't know about this. This is really, I'm having a hard time controlling this. And then Landis apparently said along the lines of, well, you think that was bad. Wait till you get to the next one. Like, he was excited. He was like,
what a dick.
Jerking off, basically.
Such
like, he was so, yeah, he's a child. So Vic Morrow, with the two kids, one in each arm, they say action. He walks across, and it's like waist deep water. He's in a suit and like regular shoes. He's not in any kind of gear. He's carrying two kids, one under each arm. There's a helicopter flying over his head, 25 feet in the air, and there are explosions going off everywhere. And people can smell gasoline.
Yeah.
It's hot. It's like really, and all of a sudden, the one of the explosion hits the helicopter, and the tail, and it spins out, and it lands in the water, and it instantly kills Vic Morrow and the two kids. And he and Micah were decapitated. Renee was crushed by the helicopter.
It's kind of awful.
And immediately people were just dead quiet because they just can't even believe what they just saw. The kids' parents were there. They saw it.
I can't even imagine
the trauma, all these people.
Yeah.
So Renee's mom is trying to revive her because that's her baby. Like, she's trying, and she's wailing, and everybody talks about and the father was like hugging a tree. Like, he was so upset. He didn't know what to do. 'Cause he's also, like I said, he went through Vietnam. He's been through this. He didn't know he was going to they didn't know. They didn't tell them what they were doing to these kids.
No.
And
and there is probably a language barrier as well.
Yes, that's exactly.
So there's the putting a lot of trust in a director and people on the set because you're assuming everything is safe.
Right.
And you throw in there a language barrier, like, I can't, my heart absolutely breaks for these parents. Like, you, as a parent, your number one thing is like protecting your kids. And these parents did not think that they were putting their children in danger, and for it to go this wrong and for it to happen right in front of them. What a fucking nightmare. What a nightmare.
It's it's just beyond. And so they actually had to put the bodies in trash bags, like to get them out of the water. And so they bring over and somebody just says, okay, everybody off the set. We're going to call for help. Okay. So, and their production manager, Dan Allingham, told, and there was 6 people in the helicopter too. So they crashed with it. So they all have injuries. There was cameramen.
Right.
There are cameras everywhere, by the way. It's recording everything.
Yes.
So there's a lot of evidence to be had here.
Yes.
And apparently when the helicopter was going over, John Landis was saying, lower, lower, get lower. He wanted that helicopter lower, and it was hit by debris. Everyone leaves, and a couple of days later, there's the funeral for Vic Morrow and then the 2 children. And he shows up at all the funerals, not invited. They didn't want him there. They didn't ask him. And not only does he show up with his statuesque wife, like holding him up like he's, and he's, I guess, sedated. I mean, he gives these speeches at these funerals. And it's all about him. He's crying. He's saying, like, at least we have him, in our hearts, and now he's on film, and this is forever.
Fuck you. Fuck you.
And this happened at my father's funeral. They turned it into a spectacle, and all these people were up there crying about my dad, and I didn't know who the fuck they were, and I was so infuriated. It's just, don't do that.
I'm like, it's not about you.
It's not about you. Leave the families alone. If you're going to go, be respectful. Don't be a fucking spectacle.
Yeah.
He then goes to Renee's funeral, and her mother is hysterical. Of course she is. And everyone's in shock.
Yeah, because he's fucking responsible.
Yeah. And he's showing up and he's talking there. And then he goes to Venice for Micah's funeral, and Micah's family was very religious. They were Lutheran. And Michael's teacher was talking about when the kids, he wanted to spread God's love around the world. That was his whole thing, is he wanted to travel. And then one day the teacher asked, who in this room, he went to a Christian school, who in this room is the most like Jesus? And the whole class said Micah, because he was such a sweet little kid. I mean,
God,
they're angels. I mean, and he shows up at that funeral and makes an ass of himself. I mean, just makes everything about himself.
Fucking dick.
Yeah, it's awful.
This is parents' worst nightmare, is like outliving your children.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how your heart ever recovers from that. They're never going to get their children back. And for him to, they're gone. And for him to show up and then like try to make it about himself is fucking monster behavior.
It's, I use sociopath all the time, maybe too much, but there's a huge lack of empathy there.
Yeah.
You're not getting something really important.
Yeah.
You're covering your ass.
Yeah. And here's the thing. He could be in that moment like he does feel responsible.
Of course.
And maybe he thinks he's helping, but he's not. He's making it fucking worse.
And he also sets himself up that everybody just tells him to do whatever the fuck he wants, and it's fine. Nobody, a good wife, like my mother with my father, would be like, no, not doing that. Yeah. I mean, but no,
You're
she's
not
enabling
helping
him. She's enabling it all. Like
these families need to grieve.
Yes.
And they can't do that when Assface shows up and makes it about himself.
Also, this was a big case in the media at the time.
Yeah.
And it's LA. It's a one industry town. Like something happens at a movie set, everybody hears about it. So these kids' funerals were also attended by the media and Vic Morrow's.
Which is why he was there.
That's also it. So a couple of the cameramen heard about this, and they got together and they decided, we all tried to tell him. And everybody's acting like it's just this terrible accident. It's this terrible accident. Like no one could have predicted it. Like that's your job, first of all. And nobody's like predicted. 100%, but it was predicted. Yeah. And there's so many steps along the way. He could have stopped it, but he once again, he's a dictator. Everything he wants, he gets. So these men get together and they're cameramen and they're working in the field, and they there's above the line and below the line in Hollywood. Above the line is the director, the producer, the actors,
Right.
the face of the movie. Below the line is everybody that works on the movie. It could be hair and makeup, it could be special effects. So these are below the line guys speaking out against above the line people in a one industry town.
Yeah.
So it takes some cojones
But it does.
to speak up, because a lot of people don't.
Yeah. And they then are labeled like a pain in the ass.
Troublemakers.
Yeah. And people don't want to work with them. They're going to tell on us.
Exactly. So these men have a press conference of their own and say, this is some bullshit. We need to, you need to do a proper investigation here, because there's so much more that happened here than you even imagine. So what happens is the labor board, of course, California's labor board is completely infuriated. Like, you cannot put a 6 and a 7-year-old in that position. What you did, you were lying to the parents. You didn't give them proper any chance. So the National Transportation Safety Board and the Federal Aviation Administration were all working together to gather evidence, and so they were working with them. Turns out there's alcohol in the set. There was drinking. There was drugs. There was and it's also, this is shot 2 a.m. Like,
Yeah.
and they've been working for weeks. Like, they were exhausted, and it was just like more. Okay. So this investigation happens, and it takes several years, but there are 5 defendants, and Landis is among them, that are mostly above the line people who are charged with manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter.
Got it.
And this is the DA in LA. They said, oh, well, what if we just plead guilty to child endangerment and that kind of thing and pay the fines? And that's what and they're like, no, this is beyond endangerment. I mean, you really, you broke the law. The trial happened. And they died.
Yeah.
And the trial happens, and it's in 86 and 87. It's a 9-month trial, and it's all anybody talks about in Hollywood. There's 5 men on trial, and they're men that are in show business. And then there's a DA who, I don't know how much she makes a year, but, she's trying cases all the time. It's a woman, so of course she gets the dragon lady persona
what a
from
shrew.
people. Yeah,
what a shrew.
She has a problem with rapists and murderers and creeps, That's her job.
What
yeah.
a bitch.
So she's intense, and it's like 80s makeup is not a kind thing to look at in retrospect.
This happened to Marsha Clark with
Yes.
the O.J. Simpson trial. If you could watch, there was the O.J. Simpson, Ryan Murphy.
Yes, which was very good.
Series. Yeah. Sarah Paulson did a really great job of showing what it was like for Marsha Clark at the time to put up with the media scrutiny that comes with being a tough bitch. Like,
or just somebody who's doing her job.
But someone who's really tough and doing their job and trying to hold men accountable, and how the media treats women that do that.
Yeah. So so she's trying to deal with that. Plus, it's Leah Perwin D'Agostino. And she's like me. She's like very fair skinned with dark hair, and she wears like big glossy makeup. I mean, it can look, in today's video, when you look at it, you're like, ooh.
Yeah.
But she's just a woman doing her job. And she would say things like she would call him a murderer when he was doing interviews, and she was just not having his bullshit. So he asked all of his friends to come by the trial to be, to give him some, a boost, just to show how human he is and how.
Also to probably impress people.
And also it sways the jury, because one day you have Dan Aykroyd sitting there. Michelle Pfeiffer dropped by. People would talk to the jury. They would give them autographs. There was a whole letter that went out, and there's a bunch of directors like Francis Ford Coppola and Sidney Lumet that signed a letter that said, come on, give him a chance. He's just, he feels terrible,
He didn't know. First of all, these people probably don't know the whole story. They just know this person that they work with, and so
what do we know about
they're
people?
not on the they don't know, they're not on the jury, you know what I mean? But they probably,
if it was Big Star, you had a good relationship with Landis, right? He's gonna butter you up. He's gonna make you feel special. So you're like, he couldn't possibly be this horrible like people say. I only see the good side of him. And then they're looking
Also,
over at a jury that's like, oh,
yeah, they're trying to maintain like a good working relationship. Everyone in Hollywood is gonna probably work with each other at some point. So that's why they're so reluctant to talk shit about each other. Because you don't want to do that with your coworkers.
right.
Because you have to work with them. You might need something from them
Or
at some point.
or your popularity goes down and you need a gig, or
Yeah.
it's very incestuous. The jury sees this. They see the celebrities coming in and out. They see him giving interviews. They, and in the end, they were all acquitted. And basically the jury said they didn't prove their case. And there were some things that were bungled. They always are. They're working on how many cases at a time. Yeah. It's very intense. It's there's a very detail oriented about squibs and the flash bombs and shit like that. Like, how much can people understand? But the jury had a great time, they said, that during this trial. Like, it was one of the best times of their lives. It was interesting. They learned about the law. I know. And he wrote a letter.
It's a weird thing to say.
They did, though. I mean, and by the way, Eddie Murphy refused to do it. And they didn't even have a bad relationship at that time. But they worked on Trading Places. He got along great with him. But he was like, no, he had a couple of kids killed. I'm not going to do that. Anyway, he does eventually work with him. But so the jury comes back, and Landis gives a note to all the people on the jury. Thank you so much. And they do that, And then a year later, he gives them, he takes them to a private screening of Coming to America from Eddie Murphy. And a year after the verdict is given, he has a victory party with all of his friends at a Beverly Hills hotel.
Gross. So fucking gross.
Yeah, it's pretty hideous. So Eddie Murphy did work with him, but apparently Landis, just being an asshole, wanting to put people in their place, like he was pissed that Eddie Murphy didn't show up at the court, so he would just give him a hard time and nag him about his performance and about what his jokes and stuff like that, his impersonations. Like, the movie's very heavy on Eddie Murphy.
Yeah,
and Arsenio. They're doing a great job, but he nagged him. He just said all kinds of terrible things. And so when they were doing promotion for the movie, and by the way, he never does promotion for his movies after this. He doesn't do press conferences. He doesn't go on the junkets.
He doesn't want to be pointed out on the Universal Studio Tour.
Right.
Because people are going to say shit. They're going to hold him accountable because he can throw all the fucking parties he wants and invite people to screenings and all that shit. He's responsible for what happened. Nobody gives a shit that he's acquitted.
No.
OJ was acquitted.
Exactly.
We know.
So he has this party for them. He and Eddie Murphy have this split up, and Eddie Murphy's doing press for Coming to America. He actually says at one point, I think I will work with Vic Morrow before I work with this man again. He does work with him again.
Snap.
But it was like they were not friends. They worked together on Beverly Hills Cop 3. Michael Jackson distanced himself from him. Like, well, you know how he feels.
Damn, you know how fucked up you are when Michael Jackson's like, no thanks.
He's
I'm
being
gonna beat
judgy.
it. And he fucking moonwalks out of that room. Like, damn.
This this relationship and friendship that he had with Spielberg was completely shattered. Spielberg never spoke to him again. Didn't go to the courts, by the way. Didn't sign the letter to by the DGA to give him a break. He was disgusted.
Spielberg
Has a conscience.
is really good with kid actors too.
Yes.
Like, that's one of his superpowers. Like, watch E.T. Watch even Temple of Doom, where like there's some things in there where you're like, whoa, like he's really good with children. And he super fucking cares.
He has
about
empathy.
kids. Yes.
As a human being, he's reflective.
He's not a monster.
No, he's not. He's reflective. And people work with Spielberg for years. Like, he has the same crew for 40 plus years.
Right.
He runs a good set. He's professional. and he's decent with people, and he just likes to tell stories. You know what I mean? And he asks the crew for suggestions and things like that. Like, he's very open, and it's just like he's the opposite of John Landis. We talked about Max Landis. You can listen to that episode, but Max Landis has a lot of time in his hands, so he's been putting out videos lately of him just talking into his phone. And one of them is where he's making fun of the dialogue from The Twilight Zone. And it's terrible dialogue, by the way. It is bad, objectively.
But also, come on, man. What the fuck?
But it's Vic Morrow specifically that he's making fun of in the video. And he's like making fun of his dad's. And I'm like, that man was killed because of your father's negligence.
Yeah.
And you're trying to make a point here.
It's so shitty.
There have been multiple lawsuits that were settled. It was from the families of Morrow and the kids and their families. But it really shattered people's lives. The men that spoke out basically didn't have careers in show business after that. They were the sacrificial lambs. Like, they did the right thing, but then everybody, and Landis says things like, I hire people, they have to do their job. That's not my fault if they don't do it well, which is totally not how he wants to be treated. He wants to be treated like he's a god, and everything he says is fine, and everything that he wants, they'll provide for him.
Yeah. Well, he thinks he's been acquitted, therefore he did nothing wrong.
Right. And that's what Max is saying in one of his videos is like, there's been all these trials and stuff like that. They paid a shitload of money because he fucked up. Mm-hmm. And it should have been much worse. Accidents in Hollywood after this verdict went down, after this tragedy, about 60%. So there were a lot of shenanigans going on that people finally were like, oh, wait a minute. It probably will cost us more if we don't do this safely.
Yeah. This is why the Rust film set with Alec Baldwin is such a big fucking deal. This is why the thing that, with Brandon Lee and the Crow was such a big fucking deal. Like, this stuff doesn't happen very often because there's a lot of rules and regulations to keep people safe. And when you break those rules, shit goes wrong.
Right.
And people can die, and it's not worth it because it's a fucking movie.
It's just a fucking movie. And that's our creep this week, John Landis. And I had so much rage and fury. There's just so many things I could say. I mean, he doesn't give a fuck. It's all for show. It's, the entitlement of this guy. He hasn't made a movie in a while. He kind of, his popularity dropped off. Yeah.
Yeah, because he does, like, Coming to America, which was a huge hit. Oscar, which, by the way, lots of people love. It's a cult hit for sure. It bombed.
Right.
Like, then he does something called Innocent Blood. Nobody sees that. He does Beverly Hills Cop 3. It's
terrible.
It's panned. It probably made money. But then he does something called The Stupids with Tom Arnold. He does Blues Brothers 2000. Nobody sees that.
That's a terrible movie.
Yeah. Another movie called Susan's Plan. I don't even know what the fuck that is. Like, yeah, no. He definitely, people got tired of his shit. For sure.
It's like what's the advantage of having, I mean, especially he realizes, like, once you stop making money for people, they don't give a shit about you.
Yeah.
And there's certain people, like, their revenue goes down, but they're still respected and people still like them and want to hang out with them, and because they're interesting. They have a way of looking at the world. This guy is not that.
No, there isn't. Fuck that guy. He's a creep.
Fuck him.
Good job, friend.
Thank you.
I know that was no fun.
No, it was really hard. It was really hard. So I'm gonna watch The Princess Diaries tonight, and hopefully that'll cleanse my brain.
Yes, I think it will. So one of the other directors in the Twilight Zone movie is George Miller.
Oh,
do you know who George Miller is?
Did he do a zombie movie?
He is the director of the Mad Max movies.
Oh, I love those movies.
Yes. Okay. So he did the Mad Max movies. His new one, Furiosa's coming out like in a week or something like that. By the way, Fury Road
Really
blew
good
my
movie.
fucking mind when I saw it. And I watched it again recently because I'm getting ready for Fury. The dude is 79.
Wow.
He's 79 and he's making these movies. Like, these are young man movies. I can't comprehend that he's doing that. But he I'm going to talk about why I picked him here in a second, but like he's got this crazy filmography that like kind of fascinates me because he does Mad Max and all the various Mad Max movies, including Beyond Thunderdome. And he directs that music video.
We don't need another hero.
But then he does things like Witches of Eastwick, which he had a very bad time on the set with.
It's not great.
But then he also does a medical drama called Lorenzo's Oil. He he also directed Babe, the movie with the talking pig.
That's a George Miller movie?
Yes, he directed Babe, Pig in the City. Also,
That'll do, pig.
That'll do, pig. He directed the animated movie Happy Feet.
What?
The guy from Fury Road did Happy Feet. This blows my mind that this is what this dude does. He did win an Oscar, by the way, for Happy Feet because it won Best Animated Feature. So
I remember that being a fun movie.
it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Like I like it fine. Like I remember Calvin watching it for a while and I was like, it's fine. But I mean, it's no Fury Road. Like, but whatever. I'm going to run right out and see Furiosa. But the reason I picked him was because, okay, back in 2020, there's this viral video of this young, like, Australian boy. I think he was like 9 at the time. And his name was, I think I'm pronouncing it right, Quanden Bayliss. And his mother filmed she picks him up from school. This is in Australia. And he's crying. He's just sobbing. And she's like, what's going on? And so he has a type of dwarfism. And all the kids are bullying him at school. And he's just crying. And he says, like, in the video, he's like, I just want to stab myself in the heart. Like, he's like, I want to die. Like, I want someone to kill me. Like, I'm tired of being bullied all the time. It's awful. It's so awful. And the video goes viral. It's been viewed like 3 million times or something. And some celebrities like reached out, like Hugh Jackman sent him a personalized video, and like someone started an online fundraiser to like send him to Disneyland, and they raised like how much money did they raise? $723,000.
Jesus, that's a hell of a trip.
I know. But the family was like we're not doing, like, they instead had that money sent to like an organization that helps like people who are bullied and suicide and things like that. Like, they didn't want that. But the reason I brought up George Miller was George Miller wanted to help in his own way. So he cast him in his movies. So like he was in 3,000 Years of Longing, the one that came out last year with Idris Elba and Tilda Swinton. And he is also in the new Furiosa movie that's coming out. And there's pictures. He's 13 now. And there's pictures of him like going on the carpet and like going to the premiere. And like he said, he's like, high school still sucks, but it sucks a lot less.
Yeah, because he knows. Yeah, he's.
Dude, Chris Hemsworth is in the new Furiosa movie. He got to hang out with Thor. And I just thought it was like this cool thing, like this director who, like, what the opposite of fucking John Landis is like, is somebody who like cast a kid in a movie to like do a nice thing, like to give this kid like, I don't know, what an amazing experience, and the people he's got to meet and the stories he can tell at school, and I don't know, that's pretty fucking dope.
High school sucks anyway. So, I mean,
middle school, high school,
they suck.
Sucks.
But he's going to be okay. I think that's awesome. That is amazing.
I thought that was really cool. So that's our non-creep is George Miller.
Excellent. So once again, if you have ideas for creeps and or non-creeps, all those places I mentioned at the top of the show, including our email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. Please send us your suggestions. And we love it when you use the Annie Potts gift. We got one from Ghostbusters. No, he didn't direct that movie. Thank goodness. So that's what we can enjoy. I mean, Landis didn't direct that. If you would like some stickers, send us your address. We'll drop them in the mail for you. And Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter and Instagram and all the places you like to go, TikTok, whatnot. And if you like the sound of our voices, we also co-host a podcast called Dorking Out. We talk about movies. Our good friend Adam from F This Movie is going to be on our next episode. And we're going to be talking about The Princess Diaries. So this is really our excuse to talk about how much we love Anne Hathaway. And our episode that's out right now is Wayne's World. So it's super fun if you're looking for something really fun after listening to this episode. Where can people find you, my friend?
I'm at Brooklyn Margot for TikTok, and I put some videos there related to this episode and also on the Twitter. And I'm at Brooklyn Fit Chick. That's my site, and that's where I am for Threads and Instagram. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Do something fun. Do something nice. Do something good for yourselves. Be safe.
Yes.
Don't be a creep.
Be a creep. Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.